Welcome to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. Your co-hosts, Jason Smith and Brian Bibbo, will inspire and teach you how to prosper in your mind, body, and spirit, not just your financial life. Joining forces with field experts, Jason and Brian are here to help you focus on what matters most in your life, living well.
Hello, this is Jason Smith, and I'm your host today, and I have a special guest, Jeannette Bajalia. Jeannette, hello.
Hey, Jason, how are you? It's great to be with you today.
Oh, so good to be with you today. And I'll give a little bit of background, Jeannette, on you. So Jeannette and I have known each other, gosh, Jeannette, I'm thinking 7 years-ish, something like that. Okay. Yeah, so quite a while. And we started out our relationship in more of kind of a little bit of a coaching capacity of me helping you with your business, your practice. And we had so much in common around holistic wealth management and what we do and how we think and how we operate that we decided to join forces. And now Jeannette and her firm we're all part of the same firm now. So we're all JL Smith, and which is awesome for succession planning purposes for all of us to have together to leverage each other's strengths. But Jeannette, I'm going to brag a little bit about one of the things that I was so excited and what made me really confident in us coming together is just it. And Jeannette, do you mind sharing what your age is?
I am a very young 72.
All right, 72 years old. And Jeannette, you have more energy and more passion and purpose and a lot of it goes back to your faith, right? And what you believe in and how you operate and how you think and how you take care of yourself and other people. It's inspiring. It inspired me. And I think that together we became so much better. And so it was just kind of a perfect mix from that standpoint. But the work that you have done with women and even developed a whole Woman's Worth program and written several books. I don't know about is it about 3 books now or how many books?
Actually, I have 4 books published and I have 1 in the works.
Awesome. So just so inspiring. And Jeannette, not only yourself, right, at 72 years old, functioning at a level way above and beyond what most 30 and 40-year-olds function at, but you were sharing with me in writing one of your books, at least, that you interviewed 35 90-plus-year-olds and what their kind of secret sauce was, what worked, what didn't work, what experiences they've learned from that maybe they would have done differently. In which one of your books, for those that are interested in reading that, which one of the books was those 35 interviews?
Planning a Purposeful Life. And it's called Secrets of Longevity. And it just talks about getting in the minds, the hearts of these very active 90-plus-year-olds, because longevity is redefining how we do financial planning across all of our life cycles. We're going to be retired more decades than we worked.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeannette, I want to go a little deeper into just you for a little bit here and some of the things that you're doing. I mean, that I think we can all learn from, right? I know I have in the time that the 7 years we've known each other. I've certainly picked up a lot of things from you that have helped me in living a more purposeful and hopefully long life. And I want to start with your faith, Jeannette, because I think it is your number one, right? Yeah. It's above and beyond everything else. Your dedication to faith is stronger and bigger than most anyone I know. So why don't we just start with that?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for asking, Jason. I appreciate that. My faith is the number one priority in my life. And I call it, we exercise our bodies, we try to diet, but you have to exercise your faith. And that's what I do first thing every morning. I have such a strong devotion and commitment to my faith and to making a connection with a much higher power that governs and controls everything that I do and I say. And it allows me the insight, it allows me the spirit and the ability to discern how to help the people that walk through our doors the right way. Because for me, the way I serve the individuals and the families that come to us for help, that I do it in a faith way, in a faith-driven way, because I want to make sure I honor what I'm required to do to serve them. So my faith allows me to be of service to individuals and families. And I start my day off with an hour of prayer. After that hour of prayer, I'm Catholic, of a Catholic, Christian Catholic, and I go to Mass every morning. And one of the opportunities I had of joining forces with your firm, Jason, is gives me that freedom to be able to do that, because especially as we navigate later life stages, and you got to get closer to that last quarter of your life. Pretty much. You're saying, how is the last quarter of my life going to be defined? You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have the help, if you don't have that spiritual fortitude to get you through those tough times, it's going to be challenging. So what keeps me young, passionate, energetic is the essence of who I am, and that's my faith.
And so, Jeannette, you said that you pray about an hour every day. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And is that the first thing that you do every morning?
First thing I do, I wake up and I get myself in the mindset. I try doing it later on in the day, but what gets my mindset gets me in the right frame of mind, gets me to focus on the day, because there's going to be challenges in the day. And I have to do it first thing in the morning. I don't eat breakfast, I don't brush teeth, I don't do anything. I get up, I go to my prayer corner. I converted my living room into a prayer room. And I find that peace and that meditation and the environment to contemplate, because you got to turn off the noise outside of your world. And our world is full of the noise from the media, whether it's the financial media or the political media. It doesn't matter. It's noise. And for me to deal with the noise of our world, I have to put on my armor. And my armor is my prayer.
That's beautiful. And Jeannette, what's interesting, like I remember when my wife and I were looking for houses years ago, and it just so happened that two different homes that we went to, one I believe was like of some type of Indian religion, right? I think it was the Sikh religion was the name. It is what the name is. And another was a home there's a lot of population in the Cleveland area, the Muslim population. Another was a Muslim home. Both of them had prayer rooms, right? But I don't really recall ever seeing a prayer room in a home of someone of Christian faith, right? I just don't, I personally have never seen that before. And hearing you say that is really just, I think it's really something. And I think it's something that those people of faith is maybe something to ponder. I know I'm pondering it, right? I'm thinking of, my own situation, how I'm a man of faith as well. I'm Christian, but I'm not Catholic. I'm like non-denominational. And I started praying, and my kids brought me so much closer to God. It's just the reality of it. I wanted them to be close to God. I wanted God to be in their lives. And I started praying with them as early as they could understand what prayer was. And it's just the best thing that ever happened, because it brought me much closer to God, which is where I needed to be and where I am today. And then I've been a yogi for many years, since my first set of twins that are now 9 years old were born. I learned yoga. I'd wanted to do yoga for many years before that. Never was able to get myself the discipline or the whatever it was to start the practice. And I started it 9 years ago, and I've never turned back. I love yoga, mental, physical, spiritual. And one of the things that I've transitioned for myself is there's a time in yoga where you basically do meditation. Almost every yoga practice has it built in. And I've turned that meditation into time for prayer. And I do yoga 3 to sometimes 7 days a week, right? 3 to 7 times a week. So in addition to like every night before bed with my kids, then also it's a time during yoga. But I think the moral of the story, the reason I'm sharing this, and I'm so grateful you shared it, Jeannette, is I think for people to listen and reflect and think about, where do you pray, right? If you are a person of faith, right? Whatever that faith might be, where is the time that you're going to dedicate, right? The time and the space to dedicate to prayer.
Jason, now that you say that, it's having that prayer corner. It could be, I learned that from my spiritual director a number of years ago, 15 years ago. I went to a retreat and I said, oh, you know what? I think I need to get me a spiritual director. And she guided me through different spiritual exercises. And she said that you got to have a sacred space. And that sacred space, you might not have it in your heart. You might be in a period of dryness, which we're all going to experience when we see our friends pass away, our spouses pass away, when we have tough challenges as we navigate the different life stages. She says that sacred space, you just go and you sit in it and you will find peace in your sacred space. And then whether you can pray or not, whether you believe in in something, whatever you believe in, you have to have a belief and a faith muscle of some sort to give you that inner strength to go in. Because, we're living in tough times.
Yeah, absolutely, we are. And Jeannette, I think another thing that I wanted to spend time with you on is your passion is unparalleled to most anyone that I've ever met. And I mean, you get like visibly animated and really on fire when you talk about how you serve. All right. And it is servant leadership that you practice, and I do as well. And it was one of the things that I think we had in common. And one of the things from a servant leadership standpoint is we serve our clients, right? And we try to lead our clients down the path to make the right decisions, but ultimately by serving them, right? And so with that being said, I see and feel that passion in you so often. And so I just want you to talk a little bit about why you're so passionate about people and what drew you to this line of work in this industry. And then ultimately what continues at 72 years old. Like, we can't slow you down, Jeannette. I was thinking you were going to kind of slow down a little bit.
Wow.
And as we were able to kind of support you in taking off a lot of the administrative and operational and running the business work, but you're just doubling down on wanting to spend more time with clients. What's driving you, right? Tell us about that passion.
Jason, what's driving me is the need. This is a purposeful mission for me. It's not a job. It's not a career. I had a career. I retired from a 38-year career in corporate America. And what's driving me is I tried to get some financial planning help when I retired. And at 55, I said, I need a plan. I need to know what to do with this money, because the last 3 years of my corporate career, I spent over $250,000 on caregiving costs for my mother. And I funded her long-term care. And I said, all right, well, I need to figure out how to take care of myself. As a woman, a single woman, I needed to take care of myself. So I left that career and then interviewed people in the financial industry, interviewed 5 financial advisors, only to learn that all they wanted to do was sell me stuff. They didn't care about me. They didn't care about the pain and the suffering I went through with my personal health journey, with my mother's health journey and taking care of her, with my great aunt's health journey, taking care of her who lived to 100. And they just cared about taking the money and doing something with it, but not the right thing. And so I said, God just opened another door for me. I have to change how men and women are served in the financial industry. That is going to be my new future. That's going to be my mission. I'm going to be a disruptive force in the financial services industry. And particularly, I was focusing on women, because I said, how dare them they don't understand what I went through to save this money. And so I am purposeful, I'm passionate because it's all a personal thing for me. It's not a head thing. It's a heartfelt desire to say people deserve better out of the financial industry. They deserve a holistic approach to their wealth management. And part of that in my world, Jason, just as in your world with this Health Wealth podcast, is the best way to hold on to your wealth as you get older is to hold on to your health. I mean, that wasn't hard. So I integrated that in the holistic planning process because of my personal experience where people didn't care whether I had the money to fund my long-term care when I was 95 years old. So this is why I'm so passionate about it and I'm animated about it and I'm not ready to stop. People say you should be retired and travel. I can't think of anything more appalling. But tell me there's 5 families out there that need some of my help. I'm right there working, jumping through hoops to serve them in the manner that they deserve to be served.
Jeanette, I think like purpose and passion, right, go hand in hand. And you're so passionate about what you do because you see so much purpose behind it, right? You see so much purpose and so much good. And like you just talked about, yeah, you could go on all these nice fancy vacations if you wanted to with your time. But what are you really doing for the world, right? To make the world a better place, to serve other people in doing that. You're not seeing that by doing that. So that's where your time is more fulfilled in doing what you're doing.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I want to hear the words out of our Almighty God, well done, thy good and faithful servant. It's about servant. It's scriptural. It comes from the Bible. We're here to serve one another. And the way I do it is through joining you and your team, Jason, and continuing to help multitudes of people implement the appropriate, I call it life planning. It's not just financial planning, it's life planning because we have to plan every stage of life in a different way. When you're 80 and 90, you still need planning help. It's just a different kind of planning help than when you're 50 and 60.
Jeanette, like, I'm so glad you said that because it makes me think about a conversation I was having with my business partner, Brian Bibbo, that a lot of people know. Obviously, you know extremely well. He's in the other office down in Florida, there with you right now. But him and I were talking about just recently, I was talking to him after a conversation you and I had about how much passion you have to even continue to help people once we've got all their plan in place, their wealth management is in order, their estate planning, their financial, their tax, their legal, their insurance, like everything is all kind of buttoned up. Now, don't get me wrong, you got to manage that ongoing, but you know, the heavy lifting has been done per se. But where you were sharing with me in April when I was there and you and I sat down and probably, I think that office actually, it was your office, and had this discussion, if you recall, is you were sharing with me your desire to continue to support people and that call it their last stage of life, right? Their years all the way to the end of their life and the things they're going to need and the support they're going to need that goes above and beyond what a typical or any financial advisor would typically do. And your desire to continue to serve them into those, and talk a little bit about that, Jeanette, because I personally found it really inspiring and it spoke such volumes around you and your heart and where your purpose and your passion is.
My personal experience and understanding the vulnerability that comes with latter life stages where you get very uncertain. Can you keep writing these checks? Are you making the right choices and this, that, and the other? And as you get older, you become more vulnerable. And every societal system I saw and through my personal experience starts disregarding the older age group. Doctors don't pay them attention. Oh, well, at your age. Well, no, that's not necessarily true because I experienced it with 2 family members and beyond that lived beyond 90 and I was navigating them. And so I realized that our society is not prepared at all to help all of us baby boomers navigate. It's one thing to get through 70, but then the costs associated with getting through the 80s, the costs associated with getting through the 90s. That is scary, and we become more vulnerable because there's no support system for those people. So those families that we serve, the clients that we serve, I tell all our Florida advisors, look, the older the person, the happier I am to help, because they deserve the same kind of help. Because the vulnerability comes with, are we just discounting, oh, well, they're only going to live probably another 5-6 years. So don't worry about continuing and evolving the next generation of their financial plan. That's not true. That's not true. One of the women I interviewed at 100 in my Planning a Purposeful Life book just died a few months ago at 107. She needed a lot of planning, and she needed a lot of life care management and financial planning. So I think that's why I say passionate, because I see our society spends a lot of time on children, on families at risk, families in needs, but we don't have a lot of societal resources. The financial industry, guilty by association, doesn't understand what longevity planning is and how we plan for the lifestyle transitions and the costs associated with. Well, if you want to age in place in your home, shouldn't we know that when you're 70, if you want to age in place? No, because I might need to put some resources to creating a handicapped accessible room so we can age in place. Like I had to in my home to have my mother age in place in my home. So I think, Jason, that's why you see the purpose and the passion, because I'm filling a need that I just don't see out there. And one by one, I will help families one by one.
Jeanette, I think it goes back to you interviewing those 35, 90 plus year olds. One of the things I've experienced in the time that I've spent, and I'm going to talk to you about literally yesterday, the time I spent with a 90-year-old. And they're so wise. There's so much wisdom. And I think back, I joined an entrepreneurial coaching program about 16, 17 years ago. And, it's called Strategic Coach. And one of the things they have you do is, you kind of map out your 25-year future. And one of the other things they have you do, there's a kind of an exercise called the lifetime extender, where you map out what age you think you're going to die, and then all the things that you will have accomplished. And currently, at that time, right? What's your quality of life going to be? What's the people? What's the activities? What kind of purpose? What kind of physical and mental activities, engagement, community have you built around you at that time you're going to die? And then it's really an interesting exercise and said, if all that is true, do you really think you'll die at that age? And so thinking through now what your life is really going to look like at that time, what's your new age? That's why they call it the lifetime extender. It's a cool exercise. But I remember I did it the first time, and it was 89 was the number. I don't know why. It was I think most people, the listeners, if they hear this, if you think of how old are you going to be when you die? There's a high likelihood you're going to have a number that's just going to come to you for whatever reason, right? You've thought about it, you haven't thought about it, but it just comes to mind and something comes up. And so for me, the number that came up was 89. I did this exercise. The number became 117.
Good.
Right?
Great.
So, right. I mean, it's a big number, right? I get it. It's a big number. But I also think I'm 48 years old and there's advances in medicine and technology and all kinds of things. And I live a very healthy lifestyle. So I think I can do it. I have firm belief I can do it. But I think there's no way that I could do it without purpose, passion, and faith, right? I mean, these are the cornerstones of things that you have to have. And you recently are watching a Netflix on the Blue Zone, right? And longevity. Oh, yeah. And so much of it, everything we're talking about in this podcast is there. This 90-year-old yesterday, I was playing pickleball. He was my partner in pickleball.
Oh, God.
Yes, and his wife, who's 89 years old, was my wife's partner in pickleball. He's a retired physician. This guy loves pickleball like no one I've ever met in my life, right? My wife and I just learned pickleball last month when we were with you in Florida. We didn't play together, but we were in Florida, and my wife and I took pickleball lessons. My 6 and 8-year-olds, well, my 8-year-olds just turned 9. They took pickleball lessons. They fell in love with it. All of a sudden, we love pickleball. Our whole family were playing pickleball. So we go and play yesterday and did a pickup game with this 90-year-old and 89-year-old wife. They were awesome, by the way. It was unbelievable. But I feel like, and I know because I spent a bit of time even after we played asking him questions and understanding kind of where his head is at. He's so passionate, right, about just being involved, this sense of community and this activity, the mental, the physical activity, the social activity that it brings to him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jason, when you look at that 90-year-old and 89-year-old, the best of their life is the rest of their life. So they are reinventing. There could be something else they pursue and they take over. And I think this is where it's incumbent on us to educate those individuals and families that we serve to say, we have to plan beyond 100. You have to be prepared to live an active lifestyle. And so it is purpose and passion. And when several of the individuals I interviewed, one of them was in the senior USTA, and they kept having to add categories because he said he was the number one USTA senior tennis player. And I said, well, you're turning 90. He was 89 at the time. I said, how many could there be? He said, there's 1,500 of us in the tour. And I'm thinking, wow, that was insightful to me because he was just going at it. He said, the only thing I slowed down doing, I used to do 4 professional tournaments a year, and now I'm only doing 2. I said, oh, wow, you're doing 2 professional tournaments still. And I think the beauty of it is we have to plan and prepare. And the majority of the individuals I interviewed to learn what could I do differently to serve my clients through your life experience. That was the whole purpose of writing this book. I wanted to get their wisdom. And they said many of them have outlived their children, their friends. And so the world becomes very small if you don't stay socially engaged and actively engaged. And they said the difference between why we believe we live longer and our friends is they didn't have purpose. We retired with a purpose, a next stage of life that had some purpose, and we were passionate about pursuing that. Whereas our friends, they golf, they travel, and most of them got bored with it after 6-8 months of retirement. They said, look, how much purpose is there playing golf? It's an activity to keep your body fit. Traveling is nice socially, but it's not purposeful.
Yeah. And I think if the great thing about it, though, just to go a little deeper on that, like using the gentleman yesterday at 90 years old, his purpose became actually like he organizes the whole pickleball league, right? Like he's the one who organizes it. He's the one who does all the heavy lifting and gets all these people together. So that became his purpose, right? And I do think there are people that there can be purpose and certainly a social aspect to like golfing and traveling. And even I love international travel. And the best international travel trip that I've ever taken was when I took my daughter to Honduras to do a shoe distribution for souls. It was like a service project, right?
That's great.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just finding that. And I think, Jeannette, and I'm sure you've had a similar experience. Too often what I've seen is people just stone cold retire, lose their social network, lose their sense of purpose for their job was their main, huge sense of purpose. And then they don't have that community, those hobbies, or that passion or purpose in retirement. And so I think you got to identify that before you even think about retiring.
And you raise a good point, because I'm sure you've seen it when you were running your practice. That's where health issues kick in, because there's a direct correlation to purpose and passion and health. Because I've seen the individuals that I serve a couple years after their retirement, and I've seen the ones that their health has deteriorated because they don't have anything. And I keep encouraging them, you've got to find some purpose. I don't care if it's volunteer, I don't care what it is, go find something to do. But the ones that have a clarity on what they're going to fill the rest of their life with, your friend organizing pickleballs, they look younger after they exit the workforce, and they're energized and their health is improved significantly. So I'm seeing the different schools of the individuals and the families we serve and saying, man, I'm learning from how not to do it, and I'm learning how to do it. Because when you just said it, you lose your sense of purpose because you're defined by your career, you're defined by your vocation. You're defined by that. And then your relationships, social connections are there in your vocation or your career. And then you exit. Now what? It has health impacts. That's why I love this podcast, the Health Wealth. It has health impacts. And then what happens with health impacts? We run the risk of more debilitating illnesses. We run the risk of higher healthcare costs. We run the risk of more expenses in long-term care. And I say, get a life, get a mind-body-spirit alignment. Understand that with purpose, you can manage your health issues, which will ultimately manage your financial issues.
And it's so well said, Jeannette. And holistic wealth and health go hand in hand, right? I mean, you need one. There's no point in having one without the other, right?
Exactly.
They go so hand in hand. And that is truly how longevity is going to be the outcome, right? Holistic wealth and health, the outcome is longevity. The outcome is a quality life of longevity. And even going back to that exercise I explained, the lifetime extender, Jeannette, is once you do this kind of exercise, one of the things they have you think about is like, okay, in that 89, which was the year I thought I was going to die, or not the year, but the age, 89, and 117, what additional things that can you accomplish in the world?
Exactly.
And so then I started thinking about, okay, at this age, this is how old my grandchildren are going to be. This is how old my great-grandchildren are going to be. This is how much more I can give annually to charity. This is how much I can build a family foundation to continue on for generations after me. This is how many American families that I can help serve through J.L. Smith and through, like, so you just start thinking about all the additional things you can do with your life. Yeah.
And Jason, let me say a word to the women, because longevity with women it's got to give us a wake-up call. Because on average, women outlive their spouses anywhere, depending on which report you see, 6 to 9 years. And so if the statistics that I report in one of my books, the first book I wrote, if a woman's reached 65 years old without having been diagnosed with a chronic illness like heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, the 3 threats to women's health, they have a 30 to 35 year lifespan left.
Wow.
So you could potentially at 65 have 3 decades, because we're keeping, you can reverse health issues. There are lots of things we can do as women. And what is frustrating to me, which is why I integrated health with wealth when I created Woman's Worth as a platform to educate, empower, and inform women about how we can manage our wealth by managing our health was because we utilize more than 60% of the medical services in our nation. And when you look at the prescription drugs, man, those are things that we have to they cost you money. So why don't you focus on your mind, body, spirit, on your purpose, your passion, your faith, because that could try to get you off of some of those anti-anxiety meds and all these prescription drugs that immediately women are put on as they start going through their life transition.
So this is so impactful, and it just makes me even self-reflect. As you were talking just now, Jeannette, I was just reflecting on like this podcast has become such a big purpose for me. And this podcast will actually, there's two places this will be kind of posted. One, it'll be for the Holistic Wealth and Health podcast for J.L. Smith clients and other prospective clients that are people that may become clients in the future as they listen and learn and hear about what we do and how we think and believe. And it also, the other podcast is for financial advisors, and it's called the Rainmaker Multiplier. And one of the reasons it's called that, and it ties right back to this whole thing that we've been talking about, is you can multiply the results that you create in the world, right? The impact that you can make in the world by taking care of your own holistic wealth and health, right? Because the better those things are taken care of, the longer that you can be around, and the greater things and the greatest things you'll accomplish will happen at the end. Likely it will happen in the last stages of life, because that's where you have the wisdom. That's where you have the knowledge, the financial resources, the social network, all the things that you can actually make great things happen. And so yeah, this is just fantastic. And I'm grateful for the conversation, Jeannette, because as always, you've inspired me just hearing and talking to you about this.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be here and share my purpose and my conviction. And just to finalize and say, regardless of what life stage you're in, the rest of your life can be the best of your life.
Very well said. And I'm gonna repeat something that I saw on a billboard, right? Because I've sometimes in business, there's a term called R&D, right? And it stands for rip off and duplicate. I'm just kidding. It stands for research and development, but there's a joke, right? That, and for me, I saw this billboard and it spoke to me. I saw it probably 5 to 7 years ago. And I say it to my wife multiple times. I just say it and I believe it. And it's, let's make our next 10 our best 10. But I think it ties to a lot of everything we're talking about, Jeannette, because like every year is a new year and you can make your next 10 years your best 10 years. And I know that. And when I look back at my last 10 years were my best 10 years, but I know with conviction, my next 10 years are going to be even better than my last 10. So Jeannette, any closing advice or thoughts that you would like to pass on to our listeners about what you do, other than we talked about faith, we talked about purpose, we talked about the passion that you have, and even at 72 years old to be so highly functioning in multiple aspects of your life. Any last kind of departing wisdom that you'd like to share with the listeners?
Just would like to share a few words. Discover your purpose, pursue it with passion and conviction, and don't look back, just look forward.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeannette. Thank you for being here. And we will catch you on the next podcast, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. We hope we inspired you to make changes so you can live your best life. If you want to find out more about what we do, or if you want to have a holistic wealth and health financial plan, please call 456-833-7000. Please subscribe to the podcast and share it widely with your friends and family. Financial planning and advisory services are offered through Prosperity Capital Advisors, PCA, an SEC registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in the state of Ohio. J.L. Smith Holistic Wealth Management and PCA are separate, non-affiliated entities. PCA does not provide tax or legal advice. Insurance and tax services offered through J.L. Smith Holistic Wealth Management are not affiliated with PCA. Information received from this podcast should not be viewed as individual investment advice. Product discussions and illustrations are hypothetical in nature and will vary based on many factors, including, but not limited to, age, health, product, insurance carrier, and product design. You should consult the insurance carrier website and policy for detailed information. For information pertaining to the registration status of PCA, please contact the firm or refer to the investment advisor public disclosure website, www.advisorinfo.sec.gov. For additional information about PCA, including fees and services, send for our disclosure statement as set forth on Form ADV from PCA using the contact information herein. Please read the disclosure statement carefully before you invest or send money.